Hello, McGinn. The story I have to read to you today is That Bear Can't Babysit. I love this story. It made me think of my two boys at home and the things that they try to do when their babysitter is there, like eat way too many fruit snacks instead of actually fruit, and do all sorts of things they know might not be allowed if I was home. Here's the story, and I hope you enjoy it too. There are a lot of bunnies to babysit. Take a look at that. Oh my. Mr. and Mrs. Burrow had a lot of children. There was Anna and Adelaide, Betsy and Bill, Casper and Clive, and there was little Dottie too. See them all? Most of the time, everything was just fine. But one Friday, an invitation arrived, and well, things got a bit tricky. "Oh," said Mrs. Burrow, "a party." Then she looked at her children. "Oh dear," she said, "we can't possibly go." "We can," said Mr. Burrow. "We'll get a babysitter." They put up a sign and nobody called, nobody knocked, nobody lined up outside. Well, nobody except... pages are sticky. Bear. Bear did not have a fancy suit, he did not have shiny shoes, and he was a bit large. "That bear can't babysit," said Mrs. Burrow with a gulp. They were going to be late for the party, so that bear would have to do. Mr. and Mrs. Burrow flung on their best clothes, crossed their fingers, and waved goodbye. "What should we do?" asked Bear. "Shall I read you a story?" "Actually," said Anna politely, "we can read by ourselves. We like to read scary stories." "Is that allowed?" asked Bear. Adelaide smiled. "Oh, yes, Mom and Dad always let us read The Bunny Beast." "Really?" said Bear. "Oh, yes, always," said Anna and Adelaide, winking at each other. Oh, boy. "Once, in a dark forest, lived the Bunny Beast," whispered Adelaide. "He hid behind trees and waited for baby rabbits to hop past. Then he sharpened his claws." The bunnies were scared. They pulled their ears over their eyes. Anna and Adelaide began to cry. "We shouldn't have read that book," wailed Anna and Adelaide. "That bear can't babysit." "Oh dear," said Bear. "Perhaps we should eat something." "We'll cook," said Betsy. "Is that allowed?" asked Bear. "Oh, yes," said Bill. "Mom and Dad always let us make supper." "Really?" said Bear. "Yes, always," said Betsy and Bill, winking at each other. Oh boy, they're up to something too. The wink is the clue. Betsy and Bill prepared a yummy supper of 178 pieces of candy, 7 helpings of ice cream, 36 cookies, and a big jar of chocolate spread. They all felt very sick. "We shouldn't have eaten that food," moaned Betsy and Bill. "That bear can't babysit." "Oh dear," said Bear. "Perhaps some fresh air would make you feel better." Casper and Clive ran straight for the hose. "Is that allowed?" asked Bear. "Oh, yes," said Casper, nudging Clive. "Mom and Dad always let us water the garden." "Really?" said Bear. "Oh, yes, always," said Casper and Clive, winking at each other. Oh my goodness. Casper and Clive squirted the hose at Betsy and Bill. Betsy and Bill threw a bucket of water at Anna and Adelaide, and Anna and Adelaide poured the watering can over Casper and Clive. Everyone was wet, cold, and miserable. "We shouldn't have played with the hose," cried Casper and Clive. "That bear can't babysit." The bear is hopeless. That bear is... "Bear, what are you doing?" "Oh," said Bear, "I'm building a ship, and I'm going on an adventure." "Wait," said the bunnies, "can we come too?" They helped Bear build a ship with room for everyone, even Dottie. Then they set sail and forgot to feel cold or miserable. They'd been exploring for nearby 27 whole minutes when Bear let down the anchor and jumped ashore. "Bear," said Betsy and Bill, "where are you going?" "All adventures need something to eat," said Bear. "Wait," called the bunnies. "Can we come too?" They dug up crunchy carrots and sweet beets and spicy radishes. The bunnies ate until their tummies were full, and no one felt sick after all. But by then, it was dark. "I can hear something in the trees," said Anna. "What if it's the bunny beast?" said Adelaide. "We're scared," cried the bunnies, and they pulled their ears down over their eyes. But then Bear said, "Maybe I should read a story now." Once upon a time, there was a family of sleepy little bunnies. One by one, the bunnies gathered around Bear, and one by one, they fell fast asleep. That looks so sweet. By the time Mr. and Mrs. Burrow came home, all the bunnies were tucked into bed. "Well, Bear," said Mrs. Burrow, "how were the bunnies?" Bear smiled. "They were a delight," he said. "Really?" asked Mr. Burrow. The bunnies peeked out from under their covers. "Yes," said Bear, smiling. Mr. and Mrs. Burrow smiled as Bear shuffled home. "Well," said Mrs. Burrow, "that bear can babysit." "Yes," said Mr. Burrow, "6 little bunnies, safe and sound." Mrs. Burrow gulped. "Wait a minute," she said. "Did you say 6? Oh boy. 7 little bunnies, safe and sound. All right, McGinn. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to vote for your favorites.